It's Marvel Mayhem. Marvel Mayhem. Hello, welcome to Marvel Mayhem. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to watch all Marvel properties on television and in movie form and review them for you, the gentle viewer and listener. Today, I'm reviewing 1977's The Incredible Hulk, which was a made-for-TV movie that served as a pilot for the series that ran from 1977 to 1982. But before I tell you what I think about this movie, let me give you a little bit of background on the production. So in 1977, Frank Price, he was the head of Universal Television, which now I guess is NBC Universal. He offered producer and writer Kenneth Johnson the ability to choose from several Marvel characters to make a show because Universal at that time owned the television rights to the Marvel characters. And he was inspired by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and by Les Miserables to choose the Incredible Hulk. I can kind of understand the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde one, but I'm not really sure about Les Miserables. Maybe that there's a character that wanders the land, kind of like a wanderer, but I don't really know much about Les Mis to tell you if that's true or not. So, I'm about to tell you something about Johnson that's going to make you hate him if you're a comic book fan. But I want you to realize that at the time, I think that it was necessary for this production to be successful. So, Kenneth Johnson really hated comic books. And so, he made a lot of changes to the story because he wanted this show not only to be watched by kids, but he also wanted adults to watch and enjoy the show. And I think actually some of the changes that he made made the show as successful as it was. And some of the things that he didn't get actually show where the line between a successful adaptation of a character is. He changed the fact that Banner was, Hulk was created in a nuclear accident. He changed it to being a gamma ray accident. And also, he changed Banner's profession from being an atomic scientist to being a medical researcher. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. He also changed the name of Bruce Banner to David Banner because he thought that alliterative names were a dead giveaway that it was a comic book character. Although he has a point with that, and obviously Stan Lee had a lot of alliterative names just so that he could remember them, but I think Bruce Banner is not, I think that the name is so iconic that people don't really remember that it's an alliterative name, like Peter Parker as well. You can't think, there are other Spider-Men, right? But Peter Parker is the definitional character. We don't think, his name is alliterative, right? Hulk is not as strong, and he also doesn't talk. And they had a discussion, Johnson and Stan Lee, about this. And Stan Lee realized that it would sound kind of odd in a television setting to have the Hulk talk, because at the time he was like, Hulk smash! Kind of, and I guess still a little bit. So Hulk doesn't talk, he just kind of grunts, which is also unnerving. So Johnson, and this is where he didn't win the argument, Johnson wanted the Hulk to be red, but not green, because he felt that red was more the color of anger. And he has a point, but it's not I think maybe that would have been too head on. The metaphor would have been too exact. And Stanley said, no, 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 you can't do that because the Incredible Hulk is green. That's the thing about the Incredible Hulk. So we lost that one. And one more bit of trivia about it before I give you my opinion is about the show, the movie. I'll talk about the show in another episode. Arnold Schwarzenegger auditioned for the part of the Hulk, but he was too short, which is kind of funny. Like, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger had a bunch of iconic roles, so I don't think him missing out on this one is a particularly bad thing. And yeah, I think that adaptations, you need to. So it's kind of like when you have a restaurant from a different cuisine and you bring it into a country that's not familiar with that cuisine. You need to kind of make it palatable to people or they're not going to like it. And that often involves changing things, changing fundamental things. So I think in 1977, think about what Marvel was like at the time. There had been only one theatrical release of a Marvel character, and that had been in 1944. And so this was like the first time Marvel characters would be on television. Like DC was doing something different, but so they had to kind of change it. But let me know what you think in the comments, if you think that they needed to change it or not. All right, so The Incredible Hulk, the pilot and the series that follows, star Bill Bixby as David Banner, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, Lou Ferrigno as the Incredible Hulk. And it's interesting, you don't really see this very much in the movie, but it's interesting that Bixby never read Ferrigno's script, like his part, and Ferrigno never read Bixby's part. So, and they didn't watch them being shot. So when Bixby, and it's a little bit more evident in the series and in some of the made-for-TV movies later, but when Bixby's being interviewed by the police or detectives or by reporters, he can genuinely claim not to know, and you really believe him because he doesn't know what happened. So I think that's kind of an interesting take on those two characters. I think that this show is a real vibe, and I mean, it feels like the 1970s, early 80s in the best possible way. The soundtrack is great, the acting is great, and it feels like a real serious attempt to bring this character to life. It's not really accurate to the comics for the reasons that I mentioned before. And one other thing that I really like about this character, although this kind of gets eroded over time in the series, is David Banner feels like a real scientist. And in this movie, he's performing real science. He's interviewing people. He comes up with a hypothesis. He tests the hypothesis and it goes badly, but he's doing the work of real science. And I think in the MCU, there's a line that has always really irritated me, where Bruce Banner says, "Oh, I have 9 PhDs." So him and Tony are arguing about who's smarter. And then there's this line that Bruce has 9 PhDs, which is so ridiculous. That shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how PhDs work. You're not awarded PhDs because you are brilliant. You're awarded a doctorate in a specific field of medicine or science or whatever. And then you can study, you can research whatever you want, basically, as long as you get the funding and whatever. So you don't need another PhD to research something. So it's just ridiculous. And I don't really believe in the MCU that Tony Stark is brilliant, and I don't believe that Bruce Banner is brilliant. It just feels like the script is telling me that I need to believe that they're brilliant. But we'll talk about the MCU when we get there, probably in about 20 episodes of this Marvel Mayhem. So what about the plot? So his wife, David's wife dies in a car accident, and the car catches on fire, and I don't know why he just didn't brake. So the car flips over and catches on fire, and there's like this window, and he's trying to open the door, and he can't open the door. I don't know why he couldn't break the window and drag her out, but maybe the window was unbreakable, whatever. So he couldn't actually rescue her, and she dies. Very traumatic experience. I imagine very traumatic for somebody to go through like that. So he later he thinks, well, why did that happen? And he feels a bit guilty because, there's all of these stories about how people get this super strength in extreme situations. And he's like, why didn't I get this extreme strength? Like, what's wrong with me? And so he, as I said, he does an experiment. He has a hypothesis about what happens, and he, through research, discovers that this super strength is connected to the sunspot activity, and that when the gamma rays are higher, it does something to your DNA, and then you can be stronger. So, kind of, I don't know, completely unscientific conclusion there, but I mean, unscientific idea, but in the reality of the show, it makes perfect sense. So he injects himself with gamma rays, but his injection was far more than he had anticipated because somebody switched the button on him, and so he accidentally creates the Incredible Hulk. And then he has to live with those consequences. And I mentioned the inspiration for this show being like Les Mis and being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But there's a great scene in the movie where it's the first time that the Hulk comes out. He destroys his car and then he's running around all night. And in the morning, because he's really angry, in the morning he comes to like a clearing and he sees this little girl, and the little girl screams and then falls into the water and she's drowning. So the Hulk is trying to save her by uprooting this tree and kind of like telling the girl to grab the tree. And the girl, she's freaking out, calling her dad, and her dad comes and tries to shoot him rather than rescue the daughter, but that's a different story. But anyway, what I like about that scene is it's very reminiscent of Frankenstein. So if you've ever seen the original movie from 1937, I believe, it has this scene where there's like this little girl and she's by the banks of the river or lake or something, and she's throwing flowers into the river, and the Frankenstein's monster sees this, so he's like, oh, that looks fun. So he picks up the girl and throws her in the river, and she drowns because he has this naivete about life. He doesn't understand things, and that's kind of what makes him monstrous. So you can see there's like this distinction between the Hulk. The Hulk does understand what Banner understands. It's just he's very, very, very angry. Yeah, and it's very well acted by Bixby. The famous line, "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry," comes from this pilot movie. And it just generally, as I mentioned, it just has this 70s vibe that really holds up well. And I think the thing that makes it different from maybe modern interpretations of the Incredible Hulk character is that this is not funny at all for Banner. It's a tragedy. And it's, if you think about it, it is a tragic situation because it prevents him from being close to people, and he transforms into this monster. He has no idea what the monster looks like. He has no idea what the monster does. So it's like a body horror thing, and I really like that. Speaking of horror, my brother had a poster of this version of the Incredible Hulk. We shared a bedroom, and he had it on my door, and that poster gave me nightmares. And finally, my mom ripped it down because he wouldn't get rid of it, and I was like, "Yes, thank you," because it was horrifying. It was horrifying, and I don't know. I think now maybe it looks a bit goofy. I think the transformation, like when David gets angry, like the first part of the transformation is really good, but then when you just have a guy who's painted green who's a bodybuilder, maybe he looked really massive at the time, but now I think that there are much bigger bodybuilders, so it doesn't look that great. Although I think the story still holds up, especially in this movie. But what did you think? If you've seen the pilot for The Incredible Hulk, the made for TV movie, let me know in the comments if you liked it, if you disliked it. How do you feel about this version of the Hulk versus the modern MCU version? How do you feel about the fact that Johnson said that he doesn't like comics, so he's trying to create something completely different from the comics? Let me know in the comment section. Also, if you like my reviews, if you like this series, please subscribe on the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of April. Thank you. Bye-bye.